In this presentation, I'm going to demonstrate how to apply hatch to the grade beam project found in your book. After having drawn the object lines which indicate the grade beam itself, the concrete slab, and the wood stud and sole plate above, we need to apply the hatch patterns. So for one thing, the hatch pattern should probably be in a different layer, so I'm going to place it in the symbols layer. In this case, it'll be green for me. I'm going to go to hatch, and under hatch, typically always have predefined up in that one. And I'm going to click the three dots for the ellipsis and go to Other, Predefined, Architectural Concrete. I'll say OK. The angle of the pattern I'm going to leave, and the scale at this point I'll leave also. I'll go to Pick Points, pick inside the area that I want to place the hatch, let AutoCAD find its own boundary, hit Enter or Escape to get back to the Hatch and Gradient dialog box. I'm going to preview my hatch pattern, and it's set at 1. That actually looks fairly good. I'll hit Escape. If you want to adjust that a little bit, maybe I want a 0.75 to have a little bit more hatch in there. Preview that. And again, I can zoom in to take a better look, pan over a little bit, and you can see the hatch pattern. If that's acceptable, I would hit Enter, and it accepts the hatch pattern and place it on my screen. I'll zoom out. The next thing I'll want to do is place the backfill symbol. Now the backfill symbol is going to be over on the right side of the screen, but there's no boundaries there. So I'm going to have to draw my own boundaries. Notice that the earth or grade line is exactly 1 foot from the bottom of the grade beam. So I'm going to draw a line, and then I'm going to offset that line 12 inches. Up, Escape, erase the original line. Now that line should be an object line. So I'm going to change that to my layer 0, which my other object lines are drawn in. And now I'm going to create a temporary boundary. So I'm going to use a polyline. And with that, I'm just going to draw an object that earth symbol is going to end up going into. Enter. So I have a temporary boundary, and I drew it with the polyline command so that it's all one entity. Next, I'm going to go into hatch, find my hatch pattern. I'm going to want to use the earth hatch pattern. Scroll down, find earth, click OK. And because it's backfill, it should be at a 45-degree angle, so I'll set that to 45. The scale, I'll leave at 1, and I'll go to Add Pick Points, pick a point inside the polyline that I just drew to find the boundary, hit Enter, and I'll preview that pattern. Now obviously that's a very dense pattern, so I'm going to hit Escape, and this is what I mean by trial and error. Now my earth symbol set at 1 was way too dense. At the drawing scale that I'm using is approximately ½ inch equals a foot. So I'm going to go and try typing in 12, Enter, and there is a hatch pattern. I automatically applied it because I hit Enter at the end. But actually that looks pretty good, but if I wanted to modify it, I would use Hatch Edit again. I just double click, and let's say I don't want 12, but I highlight over 12 and I want 10. Click OK, and that looks pretty good. Now that I'm done, I want to erase that temporary boundary. I'm going to zoom in. I'll use my mouse wheel to zoom in. I'm going to click on that temporary pattern, go to Erase, and now I've erased the boundary. I'll zoom back out so I can see everything, center it, and the last thing you want to do is probably draw, don't forget the symbol here that is the symbol for dimension lumber, the little X in the middle. So that would kind of wrap things up. And again, if I click on my LWT, which is my line weight, you can see the thick lines, and then the hatch pattern would be thin lines. Kind of gives you a rough idea, but again, this LWT is not an accurate thing. It just gives you an idea of what the lines would look like at different line weights. So click that off. But this is basically what I wanted you to do, is apply those symbols to this project. Now if you have questions on how to set up the object lines to begin with, make sure to contact me. One thing you'll want to know is set your units to architectural. And I set my drawing limits. You really don't have to set the limits, but I set my drawing limits to 11 feet, 8 feet for the upper right-hand corner. And then they give me a rough drawing area for drawing this detail. Again, if you have any questions, make sure to contact me. Otherwise, this wraps up the presentation for the grade beam demonstration.